history with the Pokemon franchise is fairly casual, I admit. I started with Pokemon Yellow back in 1998, then played Gold and Crystal, then Sapphire, Y, then Sun. I also played Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Snap on the N64, had that thing where you could plug into your Game Boy game into the controller and play on your TV. I don't know what that thing was called. I also played Pokemon Coliseum, and that was it. Other than still arguing with people as to why Haunter is best Pokemon, when I was a kid I thought he was a ghost cat. Don't judge me. I pretty much lost interest in the franchise after playing Pokemon Sapphire, finding the games far too easy and not as competitive. But then, I'm not a completionist. I played the games, but honestly, I enjoyed the anime far more, none more so than the very first Pokemon movie, released in 1998. I remember seeing it at the cinema with my sister, and only 3 other people were in the cinema with us, who threw chocolate at us the entire time. Contemplating existence while seeing a clone having an existential crisis. Here, have some Cadbury's caramel bounce off of your cerebellum! So anyway, the Pokemon franchise is almost a quarter of a century old now. That's a thing that sure makes me feel old. Let's see, how do we celebrate the 24th anniversary of Pokemon? Congratulations, you're almost a quarter of a century old and one of the most beloved franchises of the modern age, enticing completionists and casual gamers alike. So, to celebrate, we're going to give you a makeover, but because nostalgia needs a milking, we're going to completely ignore all the new stuff the franchise released the last decade, and instead remake the first Pokemon movie and make it CGI. And not change a thing. A bit like a Ditto turning into another Ditto. Completely pointless. A remaster of a video game makes sense because you're essentially modernizing a game with modern day technology, fixing gameplay and creating better assets. But a remaster of a movie is meant to preserve the original, not alter it. So a remake should fix what was wrong with the original, or at least update it. Which this movie does do to a point, I suppose, but it is essentially a scene-by-scene remake. I can hear the pedantics amongst you frantically typing in the comment section right now telling me the differences between the original and this remake. As minor as they are, these changes do make all the difference, funnily enough. But really, there's nothing new to say about this remake, other than the fact it's almost a perfect copy of the original. And considering the theme of the story, creating clones from Pokemon, maybe that was the point. Is an exact copy of a thing utterly pointless? Or does it really serve a purpose other than to show that we can replicate a copy of something that already exists? The first Pokemon movie has a far more dramatic tone to the anime series and holds back on the comedy in order to tell a story that is asking many questions about existentialism. Is the achievement of creating more important than the creation itself? Or should we take a step back and ask what the consequences are if we do create a thing? Insert obvious Jurassic Park reference joke here. Does this literal CGI clone, almost scene-by-scene remake of an iconic 2D animated movie fix any problems or answer questions that the original conjured up? Or is this just the same as any other Pokemon movie, which is, let's face it, are pretty much lather, rinse and repeat at this point? A big bad thing is happening, Pokemon are awesome, and Ash saves the day because he's Jesus. The first movie harkens back to the story of Frankenstein's monster, or the myth of Prometheus. For the advancements of mankind, we pursue and advance our abilities, but it isn't in human nature to stop and ask if we should. This is the main theme of this movie, as seen from the perspective of the monster, in this case Mewtwo, a clone of the rarest and most powerful Pokemon, at least in Generation 1 anyway, Mew. Viewing a film like this through a critical lens, instead of clinging to nostalgia, actually helps me to appreciate just how far the Pokemon franchise has come. But this movie is far from perfect, and evolution did little to nothing to fix the problems the original had. Nostalgia can often blind us and fool us into thinking something is perfect because it harkens back to simpler and easier times. But I can't help but feel that this movie was actually a huge step back for the Pokemon franchise. How ironic, considering it has evolution in the title. It seems that it's merely referring to the CGI makeover as the evolution, rather than actually allowing the franchise to evolve beyond the first generation of Pokemon. In Pokemon, evolution refers to when a Pokemon transforms into a new species of Pokemon instantaneously after reaching a certain level of power. Either way, this isn't really an all-new movie or a remake, but a CGI clone of the original. So which one is better? does the new one fix the original? Or rather, should it be fixed at all? For me, Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution's biggest problem is that it doesn't utilize the expanse that the Pokemon world now has. The movie mainly takes place when Ash, the main character of the franchise, is in the Indigo League during season 1 of the anime, back when there were only 151 Pokemon. But it missed out on a huge opportunity. If you're going to remake a movie, you need to answer questions the original failed to answer, or tell the story with a different perspective. The message is the same, it hits the same target, it gets the job done, but it was kinda sloppy. A bit like when you have the same meal 2 days in a row. The first meal was great, but the second was just reheated leftovers in a microwave and is now sort of dry and soggy at the same time. Why does food do that when it's microwaved? More to the point, it's boring having the same meal twice. So why not mix things up and add some spice? Throw in Pokemon from other generations. You changed things in Pokemon I Choose You, which was a retelling of the first season of the anime squished into 90 minutes, including Pokemon from other generations and even dropping Brock and Misty from the story. So why not do the same here? Or more importantly, why not explore what was cut from the original and find a way to include it? There's a deleted scene from the original movie that most of you guys are aware of that shows a smaller Mewtwo or younger Mewtwo alongside a Charmander, a Bulbasaur and a Squirtle clone, and the clone of a human girl named Amber, the daughter of the head scientist, who sadly died, and the scientist is trying to bring her back by cloning her as well as Mewtwo. It was kind of a side project. Sadly, shortly after making friends with the clones through telepathy, Mewtwo watches each one fade away and die before his eyes. It does explain why he has the 3 G1 starter Pokemon clones when attempting to prove his point that clones are more powerful than the original and therefore superior, and I really wish that Evolution included this scene, and I'm sure other fans do too, but I guess it was far too melancholic and dark for the original to include it in it. But I guess my biggest gripe is how Evolution seems to miss vital lines that communicate the movie's message. We dreamed of creating the world's most powerful Pokemon. And we succeeded. This line from the original wasn't in Evolution. Without this line, I feel that we don't see the regret or the accountability that the scientists felt after creating Mewtwo, but not giving him a reason or a purpose to exist. Instead, they just congratulated each other on their success. That is, until Mewtwo destroys the lab he was created in, resulting in the deaths of his creators. Not to mention the fact that if the Amber 2 scene was included here, this scene would be far more tragic. But perhaps it was removed to place more focus on Mewtwo and feel sympathy for him more than the scientist who lost his daughter and her clone. Mewtwo challenges trainers using cloned Pokemon, coincidentally modelled after the deceased friends from his childhood memory. It could be argued we don't really need the Amber 2 scene, since Mewtwo does ask at the beginning of the movie, was everything I saw before a dream? Another vital line that was completely missed was a line that Meowth says when talking with his clone when they both agree they don't need to fight each other. We have a lot in common. The same earth, the same air, the same sky. Maybe if we start looking at what's the same instead of what's different, well, who knows? Leaving this line out of Evolution was a poor choice, and I am puzzled as to why it was changed. Having an antagonist character say the line gives this lesson a much bigger punch, and without diving too far deep into the relevance of this line to modern society when it comes to xenophobia or racism, the line is basically saying that the clones in the originals are the same because of what they share, not because of what they are. I suppose the biggest change I would have liked to have seen is a change to how the climax of the movie ends. Mewtwo is fighting Mew, while the rest of the Pokemon also fight, but it's not as a Pokemon battle, but more as a sort of violent street fight, with no rules other than whoever doesn't die is the winner. Dark. I know other reviewers have brought up the point that an anime about monsters being trained to fight each other has the line, "Fighting is wrong" here, and that kind of contradicts the whole nature of Pokemon, but I feel that perhaps this part was lost in translation. Pokemon battles are more about a test of skill, whereas here, the fight seems to be more about survival of the fittest. It wasn't communicated well here, once again, and none of the human characters did anything to stop the fighting. other than Ash, who runs right into Mew and Mewtwo's powerful attack, killing him stone dead. So this is where I wanted the biggest change to happen. Now, stay with me here, guys. The whole idea of the Pokemon Tears bringing life back was foreshadowed earlier by the harbour manager, but it was done so carelessly that the scene later comes out of nowhere and leans instead on Care Bear logic. Both movies are guilty of this. So, what if Mewtwo brought Ash back instead? Mewtwo should have brought Ash back instead of this Pokemon Tears nonsense. I know it was foreshadowed earlier by the harbour manager, but Mewtwo should have taken responsibility, stopped the fight himself, seen the error of his ways, and offered to attempt to bring him back after seeing the sorrow on everyone's faces, Pokemon and humans alike. Failing to bring Ash back on his own, Mewtwo has to accept the fact that he's not the most powerful, because this is something he cannot do. So he can't bring Ash back to life alone, so he asks Mew for its help. Perhaps combining their power, they could bring him back to life. So maybe Mew and the rest of the Pokemon Tears bring Ash back? Or maybe Mewtwo and Mew working together alone bring Ash back to life, neither of them really knowing if their power could bring him back or not. Wouldn't that have been far better than this Care Bear Tears crap that's never really explained? Or perhaps we could have had a scene where Mewtwo offers to clone Ash, but Pikachu says to him, the clone would look like him, sound like him, and even smell like him, but it wouldn't be his Ash. So then Mewtwo comes to the realization that even as a clone himself, he is still unique, and not just a shadow of Mew. He then brings the original Ash back to life with his own tears, combined with the rest of the Pokemon, if we still have to go down that stupid Care Bear nonsense. He would still learn the moral of it's what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. Would it have the same emotional punch? Perhaps not, but for story-wise, it would make much more sense, and would bring Mewtwo's story to a much better ending, and would marry into the story of Amber 2 as well, because he brings up the topic of cloning Ash. So Mewtwo has to realize that just because he's a clone doesn't mean he's just a mirror image of Mew. He is his own unique creation. It also means that Ash asking Mewtwo where he's going at the end would be far more meaningful to both of them, and would make much more sense as to why Mewtwo decides to wipe their memories of the said events. Because let's face it, it would be rather traumatic to watch a 10-year-old kid martyr himself for the sake of Pokemon. Would I recommend the remake? Not really. It makes the battle sequences more impressive, I guess, and the makeover it's had does make it look amazing in comparison to the original, but the humans look like clay dolls compared to the Pokemon. I'd give it a miss and just stick with the original. Say what you want about the franchise and its reliance on repetition, having its foundation on consistency makes it one of the most reliable franchises to exist. I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative.